York, Ms. Stefanik, who was actually a former member, a board member of Truman.
Thank you so much, Chairman Owens. Thank you for the witnesses for being here today. I've been tracking these issues quite closely and your work for some time, and most recently as a sitting board member of the foundation, and the first board meeting will be right after this hearing in about 5 minutes. I sent a letter to my fellow board members on May 28th of this year raising serious concerns regarding the ideological bias and impartiality of the scholarship selection process. So I have a few questions for some of the witnesses. Mr. Kissel, based on your work examining ideological issues in higher education, what are the inherent risks to a congressionally established scholarship program like the Truman Foundation when public reporting suggests its selection process may be prioritizing ideological alignment over the merits of leadership and public service?
Thank you for the question. Every government body can easily be captured by politics and ideology. Non-governmental bodies can as well. But the problem is especially acute for organizations like the Truman Program, where the members of the foundation are political members.
Thank you. Ms. Kabani, do you believe that the foundation's current lack of transparency in its selection criteria and the makeup of its selection committees make it vulnerable to political and social activism rather than those committed to broad, nonpartisan public service?
Absolutely, that can have an impact on who they decide to send forward as the candidates and the fellows. Also on the campus level, those that are deciding who gets put to the regional committees. I mean, they're professors, and we all know 30 to 1 professors are liberals, so they're obviously going to advance candidates who have beliefs and pet causes that they love and they support and they want to see funded. So the bias actually starts at the campus level and then goes to the regional and the final two. So it's really systemic.
Thank you. Dr. Hess, I have questioned the will and commitment of the Foundation's board to maintaining ideological neutrality. What specific actions or policy changes should the board and the Foundation immediately implement to restore public trust and demonstrate a genuine commitment to political and ideological neutrality in their selections?
It's a great question. Look, and it's important for folks to understand why this matters so much. The Truman Fellowship exists as a model of how we want to encourage young Americans to engage in public service. We want young leaders who can model the breadth of good faith disagreement in this country, who can bridge divides, who can lead us forward. We cannot do this if half of the nation is not at the table. So what kinds of changes are necessary? One, look, the Truman program ought to understand its primary mission as making sure it is inviting all Americans to the table. It needs to recruit aggressively on campuses where it is not currently getting submissions. It needs to make sure it is reaching out to networks it may not have already tapped. There needs to be public transparency and scrutiny about the processes. Right now, the regional review boards, if you survey, as the chairman mentioned, if you survey the makeup of the judges, it's pretty clear that there's a heavy ideological tilt. That needs to be addressed. There need to be clear guidelines on the kinds of questions that should and should not be asked in the interview process. Really, what we need is somebody to approach this with the primary goal of reassuring all Americans, all students, all professors, that we are trying to create a heterodox, inclusive community of scholars who can lead us forward, rather than one that happens to be responsive to orthodoxy on campus.
Well, thank you. That's one of my missions and one of the reasons that I requested for this position on the board. And I've been deeply concerned. One of the most egregious examples is there was a 2025 Truman Scholar who publicly espoused for support for Hamas, a U.S.-designated foreign terrorist organization. As you know, I've been a leader in combating anti-Semitism in the higher education space, and we need to address this rise of anti-Semitism with some of the recipients of the Truman Scholarship Program. So thank you very much. Look forward to working with you to try to implement many of these policy reforms, and I yield back.
Thank you. I'd like